Hi everyone, it's Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'll be sharing how to create a gap card, or it's also known as a split card. So just to show you what I mean is I cut the card apart and held it together with the die cut word Merry. So the products that I'll be using for this card obviously is the die cut word Merry, the Dragon Christmas Wishes stamp set, and the Tartan Plaid background stamp. I started out with my background stamp face up on my work surface, and I inked it up with red ink. I decided to ink it up this way because I'm actually going to double stamp the background with two different color inks so that I can get that mixture of color. I put a piece of white cardstock onto my stamp after I had it inked up, and used a piece of scratch paper on top just to make sure that I could rub really well and get the ink transferred. Now when I put the cardstock down after I inked it up with the red ink, I did put the cardstock in the center of the stamp. Next, I cleaned off the stamp and then I re-inked it with some green ink, and then I had to remove a piece of dog hair. So then I thought I better put another coat of green ink down to make sure it's inked really well. But this time when I placed my cardstock on the stamp, I pushed it all the way over to the left-hand side of the stamp, and again used scratch paper on top of that and rubbed it really well to make sure the ink transferred to my cardstock. For my card base, it's a regular top folding A2 size card, so it measures 4 1/4 by 11, and I folded it at 5 1/2 inches. Then I cut off 1 1/2 inches from one end. And you want to make sure that you save that piece that you cut off, because we're going to actually put that on the bottom of the card and adhere the die cut word Merry to it. Now for the layers, the top layers, the red piece is 3 7/8 by 4 1/8. The plaid paper, I cut that down to 3 1/4 by 4. Then on the bottom, I had a white strip, which was the strip that the 1 1/2 inch strip that I cut off. I trimmed that down to 7/8 by 4 1/4. The red strip for the bottom part is 3 1/4 by 4 1/8, and the plaid piece at the bottom is 5/8 by 4 inches. I'll make sure to have all of the products that I used listed down below, as well as all of the measurements that I used. Now in putting this card together, there is a method to my madness. I decided to do all of my layered pieces first. So I adhered the plaid to the red, and then for the bottom part I adhered that skinny strip to the white strip as well. Next, I brought in my card base and adhered the plaid paper with the red border to the top of the card. I die cut the word Merry twice from red cardstock, and I used liquid glue just to stack those up. The cardstock that I'm using is 100-pound cardstock, and it's pretty sturdy, but because there's going to be a gap in the front and bottom of the card, I wanted to make sure that it was very sturdy, and that's why I decided to stack 2 die cut words. Once I had the die cuts stacked up, I put a very small amount of liquid glue at the very top of the M and the Y, and I adhered that to the front of the card. I pushed the top of the M and the Y up against the very edge of the red border. The next thing I did was I used a little bit of temporary adhesive on the back of the plaid strip just to tack it in place to make sure that it was lined up so that my card was even along the bottom. And then I used liquid glue on the bottom of the die cut word Merry and pressed that down on top of that little strip. I tried to lift it up a little bit too soon, and the glue on the M hadn't had a chance to catch on, so I pressed it back down, and once it was secure in place, I was able to lift it up and then rub off the temporary adhesive. Now the little dragon, obviously, I colored him up with my Copics, and I decided to leave the coloring out of this video just for time's sake. I'll make sure to have a list of the Copic markers that I used listed in the description box below as well. After I did have that little dragon colored up, I did cut him out with a circle die, and then I adhered him on a red circle die, added a little bit of foam tape to the back of that, and put him on the front of the card. To finish up my sentiment, I stamped Merry Christmas from the Dragon Christmas Wishes set with VersaFine Onyx black ink onto a piece of white cardstock, and then I just trimmed it down with my scissors because the only word I needed was Christmas to finish the sentiment on the front of the card. I just used my tape runner to adhere that to the very front, And that's it. That finishes up my card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, we'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.